the table.
And we were reporting this since early in the night. Remember, Don Bolduc is the candidate who said that Joe Biden didn't win over the summer. It wasn't until after Labor Day at some point that he said he did win. He also, in their final debate, the moderator had to step in because he said they were bringing busloads of illegal voters into New Hampshire. The moderator said, "Do you have evidence?" He said, "I believe it. I believe it." And Maggie Hassan said, there you have it right there. That's election denialism. He's stoking the big lie. Martha Raddatz, you covered New England politics along with me for many years. So did Rick Klein, by the way. And this might be a state where they just didn't buy that flipping on such an important issue. And you heard Governor Sununu there. We didn't say it's the most important issue, but even he acknowledged that voters do care about the truth.
And once you heard how strong a statement he made, let me read it again. "I signed a letter with 120 other generals and admirals saying that Donald Trump won the election, and damn it, I stand by it." And then shortly after that, he says, "No, wait a minute, I don't." And he said, "I've done more research." But I also think we have to look at what Maggie Hassan talked about abortion a lot. She really focused on abortion. And Bolduc said on her focus on abortion, because he said he is anti-choice, "Your views are not consistent with the average Granite Stater, number one. Number two, get over it. This is about the economy." As we've said, the economy is a big, big deal. But abortion clearly played a role as well.
And we have exits out of New Hampshire, which actually underscore the importance of some of the issues in New Hampshire. And Maggie Hassan, anytime she was interviewed in this race, she talked about the economy, pocketbook issues, and going into the winter. I didn't miss an interview where she talked about heating oil, home heating oil. These were issues that hit home, in many cases not talking about what the rest of sort of the national discourse was.
Exactly. She hit on everything she needed to hit on during this race.
What do you have, Lindsay?
And if you take a look at the exit polls here, this is really significant. Take a look at the moderate voters. She actually outperformed herself from the election in 2016 by 12 points. She won moderates by 27 points in this election. This is somebody who obviously prides herself on being one of the most moderate senators that there is, and it looks like people are willing to take her back.
Mary Bruce has been talking with her sources up on Capitol Hill at the White House, Republicans and Democrats. You were telling me during the break that Democrats suddenly think they might be back in the game to try to hold on to the Senate.
They are feeling pretty good right now, optimistic that massive red tsunami, that wave that they were fearful was going to knock them all out. That's not what you're seeing. Based on what you're seeing in Colorado and New Hampshire, they are very much still in this game. And sources also on the flip side, on the Republican side, sources in the House, sources close to Kevin McCarthy and his inner circle are saying that they are also feeling good, based especially on what they saw down in Florida, on the margins that they were winning by down there. And just to return to what you're talking about in New Hampshire there for a second, and the importance of abortion. We were getting at this earlier, that even though polling had shown that perhaps abortion had ticked down in some polls, that the economy was really what was top of mind for most voters, I think there's a question among Democrats that I've talked to about whether that's the concern and the importance that voters put on abortion is actually underreported. That people don't respond to pollsters necessarily in the same way that they will on the economy on an issue as personal as abortion. And you might be seeing that.
With just a few moments left before the break, let's get to Mary Alice Parks, who's live in New Hampshire, because Mary Alice made that same point, Mary, that abortion rights, even though perhaps had been quiet, a bit quieter on that front as far as being a top-of-mind issue, was a significant issue for voters in New Hampshire.
Yeah, absolutely, David. And like you guys were talking about, Senator Hassan leaned into that issue in the last few days. She kept talking about this as an issue of freedom, and that played well up here. The other issue that you were just mentioning, the cost of energy, home heating oil being double just in the last 2 years. Senator Hassan would go out there on the trail and she would say, I know the cost is too high, but she stood by Democrats' investments in renewable energy. She said she still wanted to take on big oil. She basically tried to say she was hearing voters' pains, but she didn't believe that the answer was just a green light to more drilling. But this was a really interesting point on energy. She stood by her guns. She, like you said, likes to be seen as a bipartisan senator, not a flashy one, not a show horse, but a workhorse. And she was, one block at a time, one day at a time, convinced that she would pull this out in the end, David.
Mary Alice Parks in New Hampshire, and as you heard Mary Bruce say from her sources on the Hill, they're relieved that they're not seeing, big picture here, a red wave at this point in the night. Certainly if Maggie Hassan holds on, that is something the White House is going to cheer about. And you've learned that President Biden, we don't know if he's called her, but he is calling the winners tonight.
He's calling a number of winners. We know he's been watching the returns from the White House. No surprise there. But he's put out a lot of the calls to supporters. Maryland, Colorado, Illinois governor, Virginia. He's just making the calls. And look, this is a person with long-standing friendships with a lot of these, but clearly he shows us very safe. I feel a little bit of confidence here.
And you hear that music. We hear you, and we hear the music too. J.D. Vance in Ohio has won in Ohio. He will replace Rob Portman, the Republican. That's a hold in Ohio. J.D. Vance beats Tim Ryan in the Senate race in Ohio.